my second post today. I just wanted to briefly talk about what I call 6 stages to mindfulness. 6 stages to mindfulness is just a shortcut, sort of Jimmy rigged hack to helping individuals understand the concept of mindfulness. I initially used the premise point of 6 stages of mindfulness as a entry point into how to not make guided meditation feel so boring. With the idea that when you go into guided things like guided meditation, you want to go to it with a certain type of mentality and intentionality and approach that allows you to get the most out of the experience rather than just listening to some language and trying to calm down or try to follow the script enough. The 6 stages of mindfulness helps add a little bit of quality to the practice of meditation or guided meditation, because you can go into it with a sort of in your head space a series of cognitive steps that make meditation and guided meditation make sense. Long story short, but above it just helping with that process of meditation is just a general theoretical and philosophical approach in life that we can apply to just about any circumstance. So I'm going to explain it in a couple seconds here. So the first stage out of the 6 stages in mindfulness is telling yourself to slow down. The second stage is telling yourself to relax. And then the third stage is telling yourself to refocus. And these three out of the first six are probably the most important because you're attempting to slow down whatever's happening in your environment or slow down yourself as it relates to whatever's happening in your environment. So slow down, relax, and refocus. First 3 stages. I always give the analogy as it relates to explaining these first 3 stages. It's especially when you experience like anxiety, like the clinical expression of anxiety, like your brain just going, you're too far ahead of yourself, and it creates this illusion that your mind and your body is going like at 100 miles an hour. And the only way, and the analogy that I use is, imagine yourself driving down a neighborhood at 100 miles an hour. How good would you be able to make solid decisions on how to go left and right? And how if you're going 100 miles an hour, how good would your decision making skills with regards to even your ability to navigate yourself through the neighborhood? Well, that's no different than clinical anxiety, depending on where you sit at on the spectrum. And so, a way to curtail that is to literally tell yourself, slow down, relax, refocus. And when you do that, you rather than going 100 miles an hour in the neighborhood, you force yourself to go at speed limit, with the idea that if you're less anxious or filled with any type of emotion, you're more capable of making rational decisions. That sometimes, a lot of the time, our inability to make rational decisions in our behavior, or in our social environment is purely based off our inability to slow down and take a step back from our emotions so that we can actually make sound, pragmatic decisions. The latter 3 stages are identify your thoughts and emotions, accept and coexist with those thoughts and emotions, and then the sixth step is find a way to cope with those emotions. So I'll say the latter 3 stages here. The fourth stage is to once you've slowed down, relaxed, and refocused. The fourth stage is to readily identify your emotions. In other words, how do I how do I articulate my emotions to the best of my ability? Usually when I'm talking at this stage here, I'm telling individuals to Google emotional spectrum, Google I feel statements, understand the why behind the emotion, and try to peel back the layers of the emotion using why questioning. Why is this important? Or why is that important? Why is that important? And that becomes a great sort of it becomes a great scaffolding tool in therapy to help uncover the root meanings behind how we feel in the present or how we behave in the present. But anyways, I could talk about that on another post. So identify with articulation your emotions, and the better you're able to identify with articulation your emotions, the more you can create a separation of self from the emotion. With the idea that when we experience any emotion, our emotions are enmeshed in that experience because we have not readily identified what we're feeling. But as soon as you can readily identify what you're feeling and properly categorize where it comes from, you create in your brain, in that space of awareness, a level of separation from self and the emotion. So rather than being immersed in a state of being, we are creating a level of separation that says that I feel this emotion, not I am the emotion. And that's huge there in how you assess your emotions, is being able to readily identify that when you are in the illusion of that state of being, the way to create that separation is to separate your state of being from the emotion. We are not any particular emotion. We are rather a sea of emotions. And from a standpoint of survival, our mind and our body perceptively latch onto the emotion that best helps us survive or enhance the experience that's in front of us. Anyways, identify, articulate emotion. Step 4. Understand that. Step 5. Understand that in this moment right now, when I'm experiencing this emotion, the most important thing that I can do is coexist with it. Most people try to attempt to get rid of emotions like depression and anxiety. And my commentary as it relates to mental health even is, it's not necessarily that you're trying to get rid of or completely cure or an emotion, it or a condition or a symptom. You are merely trying to create a strong coexistence with it, where the voice of control is bigger than the voice of the emotion, a purposeless emotion. But it is a place of acceptance as well. So rather than feeling like something is wrong in the situation, we validate it, we affirm it. And we say there's nothing wrong with being angry right now. There's nothing wrong with being anxious. There's nothing wrong with being depressed. What's wrong is if I am controlled by that emotion. And therein lies one of my bigger things is the what I, a bigger bigger not bigger one of the things I tell clients about is the mindfulness mantra, which I'll review in another post. I should probably review that in the next post. But the mindfulness mantra says, I'm not gonna say it right now. Anyways, so 5th step, accept, coexist with it, embrace it. You're in the moment. The best way to exist in that moment is to embrace it, but embrace it from a standpoint of control and not uncontrolled behavior. Anyways, I'm jacking this post up, but anyway, we'll keep going. So the 6th step is, once we've created that separation, once we identify that in that space of separation we still have to coexist, then we ask ourselves, how do I cope with this emotion? In other words, what is the best way of dealing with this emotion, especially if it's an irrational, unwanted emotion. If it's a rational, unwanted emotion, there's 2 prongs that I talk about in therapy. The first prong is, if it's a light emotion, you should be able to rationalize yourself out of the emotion, right? Let's say I'm frustrated about something, but it's really not that big of a deal. I should be able to use a rational cognitive statement to myself that, hey, this is not a big deal. Let me just calm down. And that should be enough to calm down. Well, Larry, what if it's not enough to calm down? Then we go to the 2nd step. The 2nd step is we do what we call ride the wave of the emotion. So if the emotion is intense and extremely severe, then we ask ourselves, what can I do right now while I'm experiencing the emotion until the emotion subsides? No different than if you're on a surfboard and you're trying to ride and a wave is coming at you, and that you can't stop the wave. How do I best ride the wave until the wave subsides? That's like that with just about any emotion, particularly the major emotions of anger, depression, and anxiety. Have a great day. God bless.